Welcome to the Nisqually River Education Project's 2020 Water Quality Monitoring Online portal. This portal is meant to provide students all of the background information that they need to know in order to understand water quality testing in a way that's engaging and interactive. This portal also serves as a repository for all of the data that we'll collect this season, and I'll show you where that data is stored momentarily. This portal is also accompanied by an optional, but very fun, interactive field notebook in the form of a Google slide, or you can get it printed out, or we can make it a Word doc. It is totally up to you how you want to do the interactive journal, but it's basically all of the same activities within the portal, but in a way that's kind of recorded for you so that you can get grades out of this for your students if you want, but it's totally optional. So with that being said, I'm just going to give you a very brief tour of the portal as well as show you how the interactive field notebook fits in with it. So to get started, basically your students will just load up the link. There's no login, there's no passwords, there's no accounts. They just click on a link and it opens up this portal. Once they're inside, they'll basically go in order across the tabs. You can assign as many tabs as you like. You can do just one per month. You can do all of them in one big Zoom session. It is totally up to you how you want to use the portal. I'm just going to give you a brief walkthrough of what I consider to be the highlights of the portal, and then you can do with that information what you will. So when your students first see the portal, they'll go through the introduction tab and they'll get a little bit of information about what this project actually is. They can then go through the watershed tab, figure out what a watershed is, why it's important. We have all kinds of really short introductory videos made by our staff and our partners at South Sound Green that will help your students understand all of these topics in the portal. When they look at this map, they'll be hopefully able to see that Washington is made up of lots of watersheds and that our Nisqually watershed is just one little part of it. I think it's also important for students to kind of think about where they are in the watershed and what that has to do with their results. So in this section, students can simply find their site by clicking on the name of it, and it will pop right up here on the map. So as long as they know the name of their site, they can figure out where they are on the map. Once they're done figuring out where they are in the watershed, they can head on over to the Your Site tab. The Your Site tab gives the students a really good picture of what it's like to actually be standing at their site. So using this 360 imagery, they'll be able to get a really good idea of what the conditions are like at their site, what it looks like, are there trees above, what does the water look like. You'll notice we only have 2 sites here now, but all of the sites will be added. As soon as you let us know that you're interested, we'll go out to your site and we'll collect the 360 imagery that we need to put into the portal. At this point, I want to introduce the interactive field notebook because there's a fun activity that students can do using this 360 imagery in the interactive field notebook. So within the notebook, like any other notebook, there's a place for students to put their name and things like that. The same brief introduction, the link to the portal, and then basically every tab's activities are just recreated here in the notebook in case you want to take down any grades. So for example, in this watershed activity, they're just dragging and dropping this blue droplet onto their site. By using that 360 imagery, students can conduct their own site canopy survey by using that 360 picture to look directly up and then recreating the percentage of their field of view that's covered by leaves. So let's say there were leaves at their particular site, just in this little corner here. They could then mimic that corner on their journal and then do their own math to figure out what the percent canopy cover is. And they'll just fill those answers in right here. They can do a very similar activity looking down at the bottom of the stream bank. And very similarly, they'll just reconstruct what they see by dragging and dropping all these different kinds of substrate on the bottom of the stream to mimic what they see in their site. And so that's just an example of some of the activities that you can do using the Your Site tab. After your students are done with the Your Site tab, they can hop on over to the What is Water Quality tab, and they can again watch videos, do activities that will illustrate to them why this is important work and what the kind of basic vocabulary for this needs to be. So after every video and on every tab, after something important is introduced, there will be some sort of game or activity. So for example, in this one, students are just trying to match the names. We're not trying to get into definitions just yet. That will be on each of the tabs, but just familiarizing them with the actual parameters we'll be using. Again, after a video, there will be some sort of activity, so they'll learn about optimal values and then try to sort these optimal temperature values for different kinds of fish into the correct order just by dragging and dropping. With all of these activities, students will be able to check their work using the little blue check at the bottom. And as I said, these activities are then represented in the journal. So if you want to get some grades out of this, they'll be doing basically the exact same activities, just within the interactive journal. For each of the parameters, there will be an explanation video, there will be an activity that students can do. The activities and games range from being a simple click the picture type of game like this one, where students are trying to find the place with the highest dissolved oxygen, to more elaborate types of games. So for example, under nitrates, students will be trying to figure out the process of eutrophication and putting things in chronological order. Again, students can always check their work using the check mark and then find the same or a very similar activity within the interactive notebook that you can use to get your grades. Additionally, on each tab, you'll be able to find the data that either we collected or you collected, totally up to you. Again, we'll coordinate between all of us how the data will be collected. But that data will be stored in the portal. So right now, all of the data that's here is just fake sample data because we haven't actually done any testing yet because it's not that time of year. But once that data is in there, it will automatically color code so that students can see whether or not their site was within the optimal values or not. There will also be a graph that students can look at that will show them just how their site fared when you compare it to all of the others. And this data will be on every single tab, just depending on the parameter that they're learning about. This data can then be recorded in their interactive notebook using the boxes that are provided. They can then color code their data depending on whether or not it was within the optimal values or not. So just another way for students to record their data, get that repetition of data recording. Once the students have gone through all of the different parameters, they'll find themselves on the Influences on Water Quality page. Very similarly to the introduction, this one's got some videos and some games that students can do to strengthen their understanding of all of the different things that can influence water quality. So here is another drag and drop example that they can do. They can then head over to the Review tab, where there's a couple of different games and activities that just go over the concepts that we've already talked about in a way that kind of gamifies it. So for example, the Salmon Survivor game has students use what they learned about salmon and how they react to different water quality parameters to try to guide a salmon through its life without killing it by making it go into water that's unsafe or not within its optimal values. In the interactive notebook, you'll find that there's a data sheet where students can have a summary of all of the data that they've collected, and then adding checks, marks, or X's depending on whether or not the data was within their optimal values or not within their optimal values. Hopefully this video has given you a good idea of what this portal is and how to use it. Feel free to make any modifications that you need to on your end to make this work for your students. So if you need to modify the interactive field notebook, feel totally free to do that, however works best for you. Obviously, this year we're not going to be able to get out there and test the water the way that we usually would. So we at the NREP are completely committed to making the process as easy on you as possible. If you have any questions about the portal, feel free to shoot me an email anytime. My email address is just julia@nisquallyriver.org. Thanks for tuning into this video, and as always, thanks for your continued engagement with the Nisqually River Education Project.